Hello, my name is Christina Best, and I am the Education Specialist here at Emerald Youth Foundation. My big job is about exploring and learning and doing new things. So today, I want to read to you a story about three brothers who were given a task, and they had to solve the problem and come up with the way to finish their creation. And one of the brothers is a dreamer. I wonder what you think that means. What do you think he will be dreaming about? Have you ever dreamed about something? Let's see. Let's learn more about what happens in this story. A Cloak for the Dreamer. Written by Eileen Friedman and illustrated by Ken Howard. Once there was a tailor who had 3 fine sons. The tailor loved his sons and appreciated their helpfulness. Now, we might not know what a tailor is, but a tailor is someone that makes clothes. Ivan, the oldest son, picked up all the pins from the floor of his father's shop and gathered all the little pieces of loose thread. Whenever he could, Ivan watched his father measure, cut, and sew. He wanted to be a tailor himself one day and work alongside his father. Alex, the middle son, brought his father's bolts of fabric to cut and then carefully put them away. Whenever he could, Alex practiced sewing together the small, leftover pieces of fabric. He too wanted to be a tailor and work alongside his father. Misha, the youngest son, carried the finished jackets and cloaks and dresses to his father's customers all over town. Whenever he could, he stopped at the bookseller's shop around the corner. There he pored over maps of the world and pictures of faraway places. Unlike his brothers, Misha did not want to be a tailor and work alongside his father. He dreamed instead of traveling far and wide and making his own way in the world. One morning, the tailor gathered his 3 sons before him. Now is the time, he said, for each of you to show that you can do the work of a tailor. Our good customer, the Archduke, that's a pretty important person, leaves on an important journey in just 3 days. For this short journey, he has ordered 3 new cloaks for himself and 3 dresses for his wife. I can sew the dresses, but to get the job done on time, each of you must make 1 cloak. The sons were glad to help their father and listened carefully to his instructions. First of all, explained the tailor, the Archduke wants his cloaks to be very colorful. Every bolt of fabric we have is of just 1 color. So each of you will have to cut pieces from many bolts and sew them into a single colorful cloth of your own design. Of course, the cloak you fashion from your cloth will also have to protect the Archduke from the wind and the rain. Work by yourselves so that all 3 cloaks will be different. The sons got busy right away. I wonder what they're going to do to make their cloaks different. Ivan first studied the bolts of fabric. He had seen his father use them all at one time or another, so he cut a rectangle from each one. Then, using the pattern of the bricks on the floor, see, he's down here with the bricks, Ivan carefully sewed the rectangles together. From this beautiful cloth of many colors, he fashioned a cloak for the Archduke. Ivan was ready on the morning of the 3rd day to present the cloak to his father, so he pieced together what shape? Rectangles. Meanwhile, Alex had thought of the colors of the Archduke's carriage and coat of arms that was painted on its side. He pulled down the bolts of red, yellow, and purple fabric and cut many squares from each bolt. He nimbly stitched the squares together to make one beautiful cloth of the Archduke's colors, then fashioned the cloth into a sturdy cloak. Because of all his sewing practice, Alex worked quickly enough to have his cloak ready by the morning of the second day. With one day to spare, Alex had time to worry. You ever worried? Perhaps my cloak isn't interesting enough, he thought. Perhaps the Archduke would want something more. He thought again of the Archduke's coat of arms and the pattern of its background. Then he went back to work. Alex cut more red, yellow, and purple squares, but this time he snipped them in half on the diagonal. He sewed these triangles together to match the pattern on Archduke's coat of arms and fashioned this new cloth into another cloak. Alex sewed even faster than he had the first time, and the second cloak was ready on the morning of the third day. So he cut the squares on the diagonal to make triangles to look just like Archduke's coat of arms. All the while, Misha was working too. He thought of going out into the world as he cut circles from the bolts of fabric. He picked his colors from the maps that he loved. Blue for the deep oceans and winding rivers, green for the meadows of the countryside, yellow for the sands of the deserts, red for the routes between faraway places. Misha sewed his circles together, carefully joining them where they met, and the cloth he made was beautiful. But when he held it up to the light, Misha saw that it was full of open spaces. He could tell this cloth wouldn't make a proper cloak, but he did not have time to start over. Although he worried that the cloak would disappoint his father, Misha did complete it in time. On the morning of the third day, when the tailor had sewn the last stitch of the third dress for the Archduke's wife, he called for his sons to bring in their cloaks. Ivan proudly showed his cloak of many colored rectangles. "You have made a beautiful cloak, Ivan," said the tailor. "I am honored to present it to the Archduke. From now on, you will be a tailor too and work alongside your father." Happy for his brother, but still a little unsure of his own work, Alex showed his 2 cloaks to his father. "Why, Alex," said the tailor, "you have made 2 beautiful cloaks. How thoughtful of you to use the Archduke's own colors. He will be thrilled to wear these, I'm sure. And your quick, even stitches show me that you too are ready to be a tailor and work alongside your father." "Now, Misha," he said, turning to his youngest son, "let me see the cloak that you have made." "I'm afraid I did not do it right, Father," Misha said. He showed his cloak of circles and open spaces. The tailor looked at his son's cloak and for a long time said nothing. He was thinking of what his friend, the bookseller, had told him. Finally, he spoke. "The cloak is beautiful, Misha," said the tailor. "The colors remind me of deep oceans and winding rivers, green meadows and golden deserts, and long routes between faraway places. But it's true that this cloak will not keep out the wind and the rain. We cannot sell it to the Archduke. Still, no harm is done. Ivan and Alex have made 3 cloaks we need." Then the tailor smiled at his youngest son. "Perhaps you were not meant to be a tailor," he said. "But you know that already, don't you?" "Yes, Father," answered Misha. I see your dreams of traveling the world in all the circles of your cloak, continued the tailor. Do you think it's time for you to cross these oceans and rivers, meadows and deserts, and to follow these routes to faraway places? Yes, father, answered Misha. Then take these cloaks and dresses to the Archduke and come back to get ready for your own journey. Tomorrow, your brothers and I will send you into the world. That night, the tailor sat in his little shop, looking sadly at his third son's beautiful but useless cloak. Though he knew Misha had to leave home, he hated to see him go. He knew Ivan and Alex felt just as bad as he did. If only we could give Misha something to protect him as he makes his own way in the world, the tailor thought. He sat by the fire a little longer, and then he had an idea. I wonder what his idea will be. The tailor ran up the stairs and quietly woke Ivan and Alex. I know what we can give Misha to take on his journey into the world, whispered the tailor. We can make him a new cloak from his own cloak of circles. That way, it will have all the colors of his dreams, but it will be sewn together the way that tailors sew things, and it will protect him from the wind and the rain. But how, father, said Ivan. Those circles won't fit together. I know, my son, said the tailor. He motioned for his sons to follow him downstairs to the shop, and there he explained how it could be done. All night long, the tailor and his two oldest sons worked on Misha's cloak. Ivan snipped the circles apart, and his father trimmed them into what shape? Hexagons. As his father cut, Alex quickly sewed the hexagons together to make one cloth of the dreamer's colors. When the cloth was finished, the three tailors fashioned it into a strong and beautiful cloak. They stitched the last stitch as the sun came up on the day Misha was to leave home. Later that morning, the tailor and his sons, Ivan and Alex, kissed and hugged Misha goodbye at the door of their little shop. Then they stood together and watched as the dreamer set off into the world, his beautiful cloak growing smaller and smaller. See him here in the distance. Okay, so that is the end of our story. So I don't know if you noticed this, but in this book, there was a little math. We might not think of books as having math in them, but the world around us has many things to see, explore, and discover. What math did you see? Well, I noticed that the different sons use different shapes to put together the cloak. Rectangles, squares, triangles, but the last brother used circles. Circles don't have a straight edge, so he wasn't able to fit them together to make a cloak that didn't have holes. I also learned from this book that he had a dream, and just because his dad was a tailor didn't mean that he had to be one. And his family realized that he was meant to do different things. I wonder if you have a dream. I wonder if you've ever thought of something that you would like to do. If you would like to travel the world, or if you would like to create an invention, or if you would like to do big, great things to help others. This book teaches us that we can have dreams too. Now, since you're at home and you probably have some paper, I want to show you something you can do to explore, just like the tailors and the brothers in this story. So if you have some paper like I do, I have different colors of construction paper. Maybe you don't have colored paper at home, but you could use crayons to make your own different colors. So what I would invite you to do is get a rectangular piece of paper that's blank. Often when we create things, we look at a blank canvas, something that we can turn into something different and beautiful, just like the tailors in the story. So take your rectangle, and just like they had to turn their piece of cloth, they had to use all kinds of different colors to make that piece of cloth, and they use different shapes too. So I invite you to try to cover this rectangle with different shapes. Now, if we think about some of the shapes that we saw, we can fold paper to turn them into those shapes. So if I fold them longwise, I can fold my paper longwise, and then fold it in half. A lot of people say hamburger style. I can fold it again, and now I've made a rectangle, but I've also made big rectangles that I could cut along the edges to turn into shapes to put on my paper that I'm going to design. I could also take a paper and I could fold it into a square. So since most paper comes in the shape of a rectangle, I can't really make squares out of it unless I make it into a square. So you're going to fold what looks like a triangle. Fold one corner down to the bottom. And then you are going to cut that rectangle off the end. That is how you can turn a rectangular piece of paper into a square. So I could fold this into squares, little squares. I could fold it as many times as I want to make the size of squares that I want. I could make them really small, or I could make them big. It's up to you. And then I would unfold my paper, my square piece of paper, and have lots of little squares that I could cut out. Now, as we learned from the story, I can also cut along the diagonal to make what shape? Oh, it's a triangle. So if I wanted lots of triangles to cover my paper, I would keep folding until I got smaller and smaller triangles. I could fold it one more time, but I'm going to leave it just like this. And when I unfold it, I would cut all of my triangles apart. So I actually have some shapes here that I've cut apart with yellow and orange. So I have some orange triangles that I cut just from that square. And then I have some rectangles that I cut from folding a rectangular piece of paper. Now, I challenge you to use at least 2 shapes that you've created: rectangles, squares, triangles. Pick at least 2 of them, or you could try 3 and try to fit the shapes into the rectangle and not leave any open spaces. Because just like in the story, to make a cloak, they couldn't have any open spaces. So your challenge is to use these shapes that have to fit together on straight edges. We have to fit the angles close together as well, so I could put 2 different colored triangles together to make a bigger triangle. Or I could try to turn them to make this parallelogram, or I could put them back together and make a square. So I can do a lot of things with my shapes, but I just have to make sure that angles fit together. It's kind of like the game of Tetris. I don't know if you've played that before, but there's different puzzle games out there where you have to try to fit all the pieces together in the space. And sometimes we have to keep moving things around in order to make it work. So imagine you were creating a cloak for a very important person out of these shapes, and you want to make sure that you fit and cover the whole page. So I hope this is something that you can do at home. I hope that you've enjoyed the story for today. The story that we can dream of big things and we can also create great things. So I invite you to create something great today, just with paper. Bye.